Hey there everybody, I'm Jordan at Afterburner Automation, and today I want to answer the question, how does RPA work? We'll take a look at the various components that make up most RPA platforms, how they integrate with your target applications, and how you, the user, can leverage those RPA components to automate your processes. Let's get started. Let's start by talking about the various components and common terms that most RPA products have. Now, it's important to understand that there's a lot of different products out there, and they all have different names for the different components. But in general, these terms will make sense whether you're using Automation Anywhere, UIPath, Blue Prism, Microsoft Power Platform, or any other product. The most common component in RPA is the bot. The bot is the end product of RPA. When there's a process that needs to be automated, you build a bot to automate it. You can imagine a bot as a digital worker that performs the tasks that you give it, such as answering emails, compiling data into reports, or navigating web pages. You have full control of the instructions you give that bot, but how do we give a bot instructions? That brings us to our next component, which is called the designer, the studio, or the workspace. Personally, I prefer the term workspace because my first RPA product was Automation Anywhere, and that's what they call it. But essentially, the concept is the same across all products. The workspace, studio, and designer are computer programs where you build bots. Some of these programs are installed on your computer, and others are websites that you visit. But regardless, these programs all have various tools that allow you to tell your bot or digital worker what to do and how to do it. Once you've built a bot, though, where does it actually do the work? The third component is the runner, or the computer where your bot performs its work. Now stay with me because this can get a little complicated, but depending on your RPA platform, the runner can either be your computer or a different computer, separate from yours. Lots of individuals use RPA to automate tasks as they normally do at their own desks, and so they might run the bot on their own computer to do that work. In that case, the same computer being used as the workspace is also the runner. However, some people choose to use RPA to automate large-scale tasks that have a significantly higher volume and take much longer to run. I've personally built bots that take several hours to finish their work, and I don't know about you, but I don't like to spend my workday without being able to use my computer because a bot's working on it. In these cases, there's a separate computer that's used as the runner, so that I can keep working while my bot works somewhere else. Many times these runner machines are not even real physical computers, but virtual machines that are running on a server somewhere. So now that we have a bot to do the work, a workspace to tell bots how to work, and a runner where they can work, we need to somehow know how to tell runners which bots to run and when. Last but definitely not least, we have the control room or orchestrator. This component of RPA is the one that administrates your entire RPA platform. Again, because I started with Automation Anywhere, I'll use their term and refer to this as the control room. It tells runners which bots to run and when, through different schedules and triggers, but this is only a small part of its responsibilities. In most cases, the control room also handles security permissions for all users and bots, which tools are available to create bots in the workspace, and logs of all in-progress and historical bot executions, as well as other various options to administrate your RPA system. So now that we know about the different pieces that make up an RPA system, let's talk about how they interact with the processes you want to automate. When you write a bot to automate a process, you typically need it to work with another program to do its work. For instance, let's say you have an Excel spreadsheet full of data that needs to be moved into a customer records management program like Salesforce. Then you need to email a report to your boss. These other programs, Excel, Salesforce, and Outlook, are called target applications because they're applications that you're targeting for automation. One of the biggest benefits of RPA is that it can automate against almost any target application without needing to install something other than the RPA product itself. RPA tools are most widely used to automate against the front end of a target application. The front end is the way that we as human beings typically access a program. So for instance, if you needed to log into Gmail, you'd open up a web browser, navigate to the login page, and type in your username and password. This is the so-called front end of the website, because it's the side of the website that was designed for you as a customer to interact with, very similar to a storefront entrance. RPA tools can interact with the front end in the same way through powerful technology that allows you to tell a bot to open a web browser, navigate to the login page, and type the credentials into those same fields. On the other hand, RPA platforms are also extremely effective at automating against the back end of the target application. If the front end is the storefront entrance, then the back end is like the employee entrance behind the store. They both lead to the same place, but one's intended for customers who need directions, and the other is intended for employees who need to be able to run the store more effectively. If we go back to our Gmail example, instead of performing all of those steps in the front end to access our email, we might instead use a back-end API to access our email, without ever opening a web browser. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, API stands for Application Programming Interface, and I could teach a whole course just on what that is. So instead, I'll just summarize by saying that APIs are kind of like behind-the-scenes ways of accessing data and functionality through code instead of a web browser like Google Chrome. All that being said, all RPA platforms are even better at automating against the back end through interactions with APIs, databases, and other more traditional software development solutions. So now we know the components of RPA platforms and how they interact with target applications. But what about us, the users? How do we interact with RPA to put all of these pieces together? This may seem counterintuitive, but the first step in automating a process with RPA doesn't actually take place using any of the RPA components that we just learned about. If we're going to give instructions to a bot on how to perform a process, we first need to create a detailed process map. If you took my What is RPA course prior to this one, you'll remember that we used cooking rice as an example of a process you might teach to someone else. If you simply tell a person that's never cooked rice before to cook rice, it's unreasonable to expect them to succeed. Instead, we need to give that person detailed, step-by-step instructions on how to cook rice. It's the same way with RPA bots, in that they need to be told every single step in the process, no matter how small. And the first step in being able to tell a bot how to perform a process is to make sure you document all of the steps in that process. Some RPA platforms even have tools included, or as add-ons that make process mapping easier and more streamlined. But it's also an option to do the process yourself, the way you would normally do it, and document all of the steps that you take to perform that process. The more detailed your process map is, the more easily you'll be able to perform that next step. So now that we have a detailed process map, we can use the workspace to build the bot according to that process map. There are several different approaches to this, but a key point to keep in mind is that while the process map might be the best way for a human to perform the process, there may be better ways to do it with a bot. For instance, because we as humans rely on our vision a lot when we perform tasks, logging into a system using the front end is generally easier because we can see and recognize where to put our username and password. However, bots don't have vision, at least not in the same way we do. They have different strengths that we don't have, so it may be easier and less error-prone to tell a bot to log in using something like an API, which plays to a bot's strengths. It's important to remember that bots are different than humans, and so there may be a different, better way to accomplish the same task. As a result, when building bots, we should constantly re-examine the process map and question if our way is the best way for a bot. Once the bot's built, depending on the process, you might decide that you need to schedule the bot in the control room so that you can run it from a runner machine. Each RPA platform is different, but most have a relatively simple feature built into the product to upload or check in your bot so that it's now stored in the control room. Once the bot's been uploaded, bots can be set up to run at certain times or when certain conditions are met. For instance, if you built a bot that checks an email inbox and replies to certain emails, you could schedule a bot to run every morning at 8 a.m., or you could alternatively set it up to run any time that you receive an email. Now, whether you've decided to use the control room or not for your bot's execution, you're now ready to finally run your bot on a runner. Like I mentioned earlier, the runner machine can be your own workstation, but if you've set it up in the control room, it can also be another computer. The bot will execute and perform all of the instructions that you gave it, at which point you'll probably find that you need to tweak your bot's code to make it work just the way you want it to. Remember that bots will do exactly what you tell them to do, so make sure to be specific. And that's it. Now you know all the components of an RPA platform. You learned about bots, which are the digital workers of RPA, the workspace, designer, or studio where you build the bot by telling it how to perform a process, the runner, where the bot runs itself and performs that process, and the orchestrator or control room, where you can decide which bot runs and when, and also perform other administrative tasks. You learned about how RPA interacts with the programs on your computer that you want to automate, otherwise known as target applications, and how you can use either the front end or the back end. And finally, you learned how you interact with all of these pieces yourself by creating a process map, by manually using your target applications, building the bot in the workspace, optionally scheduling it in the control room, and then running it on a runner. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. For more RPA training, check out the next video here, or watch everything in order right here. Subscribe to my channel for updates on new content, and become a patron to get access to personalized RPA support. But until next time, I'm Jordan at Afterburner Automation, and I hope this helps you build better bots.